We are live. Perfecto. Namaste, everyone. Christian R. Long for the Mahatma Project, spreading the message of great souls doing great work. And on today's amazing, phenomenal, ridiculously awesome interview, we have Brian Luke Seaward of the Paramount Wellness Institute. And this is a little bit different. Well, you guys know we always do every interview completely different. And Brian and I just connected a few minutes before actually doing this interview because we're all about proficiency and speed, especially on Martin Luther King Day, of a man that was an activist that made things happen. So we're making things happen with today's interview. And as you guys know, I always like to interview people who are in the world of healthcare or wellness or coaching, or basically taking people from where they are to where they want to go in their lives, whether it's their health, it's their relationships, it's their finances, their spiritual growth and development, where people are putting people first and they're trying their best to make an impact on the world. And how I heard about Brian originally was through a client of mine who's a nurse of over 30 years in Massachusetts. And her and I were doing healing work with one another. And she says, there's somebody you need to connect with. And I was like, I'm all about collaboration and I'm all about connecting with high quality people. And so she goes, it's this guy, Brian, let me connect you guys on Facebook. So Brian and I sent each other a message months and months and months ago, and through the cracks of social media fell through, we lost contact with one another. And then as I was reaching out to people at the beginning of the year going, hey, what's going on? What's your intention for 2018? And by the way, if you guys have not thought of your intention for 2018, I would highly recommend figuring out what it is that you want to do for 2018 and have that be an overarching guiding principle of your life. So I reached back out to Brian, and like a boss, like a man who follows up, he immediately called me and said, let's do it at this time. Oh, wait a minute, that time doesn't work for me. Let's do it on Martin Luther King Day. And so here we are. So I want to thank Brian for coming on to our interview for today. And I'm going to be giving the floor to him. And fairness to Brian, he corrected my thinking, and I'm always receptive to having my perception more accurate than before. He's in the Boulder area. And for some of you who do not know, you have Denver and Boulder. Denver has about 680,000 people, and Boulder has about 60,000 people. So when I got here 5 years ago, people were like, dude, your whole energy healing thing and meditation and spirituality stuff would be so much more receptive and well received in Boulder. And I was like, but I don't think people from Boulder get me, man. I don't feel the connection. I don't feel that vibe. And Brian corrected me and go, well, you haven't been meeting the right people in Boulder. There's a lot of high quality, together spiritual practitioners and healers in Boulder. So thanks, Brian, for correcting my thinking. I really, really appreciate that. So the floor is all yours, my man. Give people, and there's going to be a couple thousand people who watch this, give people an idea of who you are, what you're about, and what your Paramount Wellness Institute is about. Floor is yours, my man.
Well, first, thanks, Kristen. It's a real honor to be part of this dialogue here. So my name is Brian Luke Seaward. My nickname is Luke, and a lot of friends call me that. So, but I answer to both. So just in case people in the audience say, I knew this guy has a different name, just know that I have geographic schizophrenia. So I began my career back in the 70s. I was involved with wellness back in the mid-70s, going to college and stuff. And I was really taken with the whole aspect of heart disease. And I thought I'd get involved with that aspect of health and well-being. But once I was involved with the cardiac rehab back in about 1980 or so, if I got done with graduate school, I realized that the focus of health and well-being was a lot more than what I had been taught. I mean, I knew intuitively about the mind-body-spirit connection, but as it turns out that heart disease, the approach was all physical. It was all about diet and exercise, and people were dying on me. And I thought, you can't die. I'm here to save you. So I realized that I needed to get out of rehab and into prevention. But at the same time, wellness was becoming the hot buzzword. And so I was in La Crosse, Wisconsin. This was a really, really famous cardiac rehab program at the time. And unbeknownst to me, it was also going to be the location for the second annual American Holistic Medical Association conference. And the keynote speaker was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I was just delighted when I got a phone call saying, would you do a breakout talk on the risk factors for heart disease? And I said yes, but I said yes because I wanted to actually go hear Kubler-Ross speak. And for those in the audience who don't know, and I guess everyone does, so here's a review. She was famous for her work on death and dying, but she was also the catalyst for the hospice movement in this country. Two nurses wanted to do hospice, but they needed a stronger medical presence. And when they approached her, she said, sure, I'll be part of this. And so we have her to thank for the idea of death with dignity in this country. Well, her talk wasn't on death and dying. Her talk was on holistic wellness. And she said, wellness is the integration, balance, and harmony of mind, body, spirit, emotions. And as the saying goes, she had me at a hello. Because she was saying things that I knew intuitively from day one, I think, but was not really part of the culture of health and well-being. Everything was what I say is broccoli and aerobics. And so, but I knew that the human spirit was very much a part of health and well-being. And it turns out that at the end of the presentation, I went down to meet her, to touch the robe type thing. And I think that woman, she's tiny, tiny, tiny. And she had enough energy to light up New York City for about, swear to God, like about 6 months. And so when it came my turn, she said to me, what's your name? And I said, my friends call me Luke. And she said, Luke, what's your passion? And I said, everything you've been talking about. The integration, balance, and harmony of mind, body, spirit, emotions. And she said, I need your help. And I said, sure, how? And she said, would you help me and people like me reintroduce the ideas of human spirituality back into healthcare, back into health education? And when I said yes, I felt like I was knighted by the queen.
Wow.
And so after that conference, my job had ended or was about to end. And so I decided to go to graduate school. And I created a graduate program in was now called health psychology. Back then, it was basically a hodgepodge of things. It was a creation of my own liking. But they liked it enough, they decided we'd go ahead and make it a track. But at the University of Maryland, I was a maverick. Some people bang their head against the walls. I slipped through the cracks, but put together a program in mind, body, spirit integration. And the focus of that for me, because of serendipity, such as stress management. I was asked to teach stress management classes on the campus as part of my graduate assistantship, aside from running the campus wellness program. But I realized that stress management was the perfect door in which to walk in through for human spirituality. And the reason being is that if you were to talk to the shamans, the sages, the wisdom keepers, and the healers of all times, all cultures, all languages, and ask them, what exactly is human spirituality? Pretty much what you're going to hear across the board are three things: relationships, values, and a meaningful purpose in life. And when I talk to my students about stress, I notice that all their stressors fell into three categories: relationships, values, and a meaningful purpose in life. And so I thought to myself, okay, here's the front door, walk through it. And my approach to stress management was very different. Now this is a while ago, it's like, 3 decades ago. So it seems like it's, kind of like boring today because everyone knows this stuff. But back then it wasn't. Back to show you how much we've gone, Christian, back in those days, if you said the word echinacea, the response was gesundheit. Okay, we've really come a long way. For stress management, primarily what it was symptomatic relief. There was this huge abyss between mind and body back in the 70s and 80s. And so my approach was to pull those together. And when I taught stress management, I taught art therapy. I taught breathing techniques. I taught Tai Chi. I taught music therapy. I taught yoga and such. And this was not being done in other classes across the country, because basically what they were looking at was progressive muscular relaxation and symptomatic relief. And so what became of my teachings was the foundation for a textbook. And I'm happy to say I just got done with the 9th edition. And it's actually the top-selling textbook in the college market on stress management. And it was a novel book at the time because it approached the topic of human spirituality, approached the topic of energy medicine. It approached the things that I knew had to be in there, because by not putting it in there, I was doing an incomplete job about the big picture.
Love it.
We needed to actually advance things forward. And so that's kind of how things have come to be with that.
So for the listeners, I want you to ride on the coattails of Luke's experience. I like Luke. I'm going to go with Luke if that's cool. So Luke's experience is he had the impulse to go to this queen, to this high quality, very in the know person. And that changed, correct me if I'm wrong, that changed the course and path of your life. It was like, as we call in the world of spirituality, like a Shakti pot or spiritual empowerment or blessing from a, more advanced soul to move your life forward in the right direction to help more people. So if you feel that impetus to move some area of your life forward, lean on the assistance of a great teacher, lean on somebody else that can encourage you or inspire you. And I have my own, experiences with Master Choa and other teachers within the world that I've been in for a while. So follow that example. If you feel like going up and shaking the hand of a great teacher, a prince, a princess, a queen, a king, get after it. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. What have you seen in your 30 plus years of working with wellness and working with stress, and then it was a novelty and now we're kind of like all in the know. What do you think is the factor as to why we haven't fully embraced and adopted these things that are all so obvious? My teacher, Master Choa, says enlightenment is realizing what's obvious. So it's obvious that removing stress from our bodies is important. It's obvious that our emotions affect our physical health and our mental health. So what do you think, why we haven't fully adopted these simple practices yet?
I had to put into one word, I would say fear. I think that's the big roadblock, if you will. I think there's also a lot of forces in our culture, perhaps several cultures, to keep the status quo in power. Money actually is a big factor for a lot of healthcare. Take a look at our healthcare system right now. I mean, my wife has just changed insurance policies or insurance companies, and so much of what she does is not covered to this day, which is to me, it's almost negligent. But
Wow.
I think that a number of people have woken up to the idea that they need to take responsibility for themselves, and that's what actually wellness is all about, is taking self-responsibility. And so, I mean, if your insurance is not going to cover acupuncture or restorative yoga, then a lot of people are saying, fine, I'll pay for it myself, because they know the consequences of not doing anything. But I think fear is definitely a factor. And if I had to describe holistic stress management, which is the approach I take, mind, body, spirit, emotions, it's moving from fear to love. That's the real path. That's a spiritual journey, if you will. And that's the hero's journey. I mean, we see all kinds of aspects with stories, templates, and such. But fear is the lesson to learn and how to conquer it and move on.
And what would you say is the path that you've helped other people, including yourself, move from fear to love? What's the blueprint for the people who are watching? Like, look, I get it. Like, I'm in a state of fear. I'm in a state of anxiousness and anxiety and uncertainty about my life. What nugget or process would you recommend to move them from fear to love?
Well, it's a long answer, but what comes to mind right now, I can't do that in a 16-week college course. But I'll tell you something really cool. I'm a member of Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is an organization out in California about mind, body, spirit, and consciousness.
Great organization. Wonderful organization.
Tremendous. They've done a lot to bring light to the planet. And Brendan O'Regan was the director of research at IONS back, about, 20, 30 years ago. He passed away. But it turns out before he did, he compiled about 3,000 to 4,000 case studies of spontaneous remissions of people with cancer.
Okay.
And, you hear one story, it's a case study or an anomaly. You hear 3,000 or 4,000, and that's a data collection. Mm-hmm. We need to pay attention to this, and that's what Noetic has done, is to pay attention to that kind of trend. But in his book, he describes something which I thought was amazing. He said, the word remission has a derivation to the word forgiveness. And when people can begin to forgive themselves or other people, then their health gets restored. And so one of the ways, and there's many because there's not one path to this, they all kind of go in that direction, but forgiveness is a huge aspect of holistic stress management, and we're moving from fear to love. And you may have noticed in our culture that there's a great need for forgiveness right now.
For sure, especially to oneself.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I haven't heard that name, Noetic Sciences, in a long time. And when I got into pranic healing in 2004, I stumbled across Noetic Sciences at the same time. I stumbled across Astara. My teacher, Master Cho, recommended Astara as a great modern day mystery school of learning different principles and practices of meditation and soul development and spirituality. So many gems and nuggets. You are an author, and Luke said this earlier before we turned on the interview, that his children are his books. That's how he's giving back and contributing to society, which I thought was brilliant, by the way. So you've written several books, yes?
Yeah, I think close to 20.
Congrats, man! I love it. For someone who has written a lot of books, has read even more books, is there a certain book that you've come across in your 30 plus years of being on the path consciously that you would say that was the book that shifted everything?
Wow. I suppose it depends on the day I get asked that question. A great number of books. Probably, I'm going to give you 5. I know you asked for 1.
Yeah, totally.
Carl Jung's book, Man and His Symbols, to me was brilliant. I'm a big fan of Carl Jung. I mean, I studied his works. I wouldn't call myself a Jungian because I'm not trained in that way, but I definitely studied his works, and we need to actually really focus on Carl Jung's works because the unconscious mind governs behavior. Another book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. Really a great book. The time I read that, I think I was in college, but then when I went to grad school, they assigned it as a textbook in one of my classes, and I thought, yeah, I've already read that. And my professor says, no, read it again. He goes, you've changed. There's things you're not going to pick up on the first time, but you're going to pick up on now. And I remember rereading it thinking like, how come I didn't underline this part? This is like really important stuff. So The Road Less Traveled is a hallmark book for a lot of people. About 10 years ago, maybe 15, I read this book, which I would also add to the list. It's called The Cosmic Serpent by Jeremy Narby. And Narby is a ethnobotanist. He went down from Canada to South America to look at ayahuasca, the chemical properties that make up ayahuasca. And he thought as a scientist, he would look at it through the microscope and that kind of stuff. And he talks to a shaman who says, if you want to know ayahuasca, you got to take ayahuasca. And the book is not so much about his experience, although that's part of it. Really, it's about the DNA. And his shaman said, you're going to see serpents when you take ayahuasca. He said, it's very, very common to see serpents. And sure enough, Jeremy does. That's not a spoiler alert. You'll see where it's going, though, because the serpent he saw was the DNA. The DNA is like a radio transmitter. It takes in information and broadcasts information. And I can't do justice to how powerful that he articulates this concept, but get the book. It's called The Cosmic Serpent. And for me, that connected a lot of dots. And I heard and read things from other sources, but he did a nice job of synthesizing things together. So those are 3 books I recommend right now.
Love it. Man. You guys getting value out of this? I hope you are. I hope you're taking lots and lots of notes. Luke, if people want to work with your institute or they want to work with you, what promotion do you have coming up? What events do you have coming up? He just finished a photography coffee book. How do people get a hold of you, and what do you have going on? Like, what's the like you said earlier, the doorway? So what's the doorway? What's the front door to start working with you?
Sure. I went back to visit Kubler-Ross. She had a stroke, and she was incapacitated for a number of years, and then she passed away. But she offered to write the foreword to my textbook. And then this is back in 1992 or so. And then someone actually burnt her house down in West Virginia. So she relocated to Arizona. And she did write the forward. Larry Dawsey wrote the forward to, which I'm forever grateful for. But I did a new book called The Healthy Human Spirit, and I was in touch with her, and she said, I can't write, but if you come down to see me and take dictation, I'll do your forward. And so when I went down there, she began the conversation by saying, she goes, I remember you. That was kind of nice. And she said, and I talked about how we first met. She goes, yeah, that was a long time ago. She goes, what have you been doing since? So I told her, and she said, it's time for you to not only teach stress management, but to teach others what you're doing. And so for the past, I say 15 years, I have been doing a certification workshop in how I teach, train the trainer, if you will.
Got it.
So I do 2 of those, and I have one in Hartford, Connecticut in April, and I have one in Boulder in May. And mostly they're all healthcare professionals. I do a lot of people who come who are nurses. I'm a member of the American Holistic Nursing Association, so I tap into that data bank there. But we have college professors, we have physicians, we have massage therapists, social workers, because stress knows no demographic boundaries. It's the equal opportunity destroyer.
Mm.
So that's something I do. And then some nurses said to me, hey, can you do a couple of classes where we kind of go on vacation, like maybe Ireland or Italy, but we get contact hours for them. So I do trips to Italy and trips to Ireland. We have one to Ireland this summer, and for the first hour of the day, we do meditation. I do a lecture, and then we go out and play the rest of the day. We do a lot of energy work actually in Ireland with some of the stone circles and the ley lines and things. But what's nice is our tour guide says I do 35 tours a year. Yours is the only tour I look forward to. He said, because people come here and they take pictures and drink beer. He goes, you guys come and give something back.
Mm.
So we got some spots left on the Ireland trip. That's June, I think, 14th to the 23rd. And then I do a lot of public speaking too. I go to corporate America. I got a couple of talks lined up for Transamerica. It's a wellness financial company there. But, John Deere, Hewlett Packard, I go to corporate America and give talks on stress, because stress is definitely big in the work site.
For sure.
But I love teaching. It's my number one passion. I think we need to walk our talk in terms of healthcare practitioners. So the workshops I do basically say, they say, I'm coming here because my work sent me. And then when they get done, they say, I thought I came for work, but actually I'm coming for myself.
Totally.
Nice. Speaking of doorways, I actually, you may have heard that the angel cards is pretty popular with Doreen Virtue.
Mm-hmm.
I do photography, and I was in Ireland back about, 10 years ago, and people in Ireland paint their doors just beautiful, bright colors. And the door frames are very different in Ireland. Our doors are boring. So I found myself taking pictures of doors. And then I went to Italy, took pictures of doors there, and all of a sudden now I had this door fetish. But as I was meditating, because I was going to make a poster called The Doors of Ireland. Not original, but mine would be very different, I suppose. And I'm meditating, and I hear this message that says, you got to do something more than just a poster. You got to do a deck of cards. So I have a deck of cards called The Doors of Perception. I kind of borrowed that title from Blake, but so did Jimmy Morrison. So it's a deck of cards, and it's kind of like an oracle deck using the work of Carl Jung, archetypes of the door as an archetype of passage. So that's something that's pretty popular too.
And that's already out. That's available.
Yeah, yeah, on my website.
Got it, man. So just to review a couple of the nuggets we talked about today, one of the key components to go from fear to love is forgiveness, right? So forgiving oneself and forgiving others, which is tremendously healing. As my teacher, Master Choa, says, forgiveness is therapeutic, right? So very, very important of letting go. So that helps us go from fear, go into love. Also, if you feel the impetus to go in the direction, even though you might be fearful, even though you might be doubtful, but you are getting the pull, go in that direction, and it could possibly transform and change the entire your entire life path. The 3 books, Luke, you're gonna have to remind me, the 3 books that we recommended to read are, first one?
Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung.
Second one is The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And the third one?
Cosmic Serpent by Jeremy Narby.
Cosmic Serpent. So that should give you guys enough to chew on for a little bit. And then in the video description, if you're watching this on YouTube, below, we're going to have all of Luke's information on how to get a hold of him, different events that he's putting on, the cards, which I think that's super creative, and Doors of Ireland. It's so cool. It's interesting because if you look at in Jerusalem, you'll see the doorway, and then there's like it's heavy, or it's open at the top of the door frame. And Master Cho was explaining to that one time of it's a representation of the crown chakra, and then the 12th chakra, or the incarnated soul, and that's why it's bigger at the top. So, you know, spiritual truths are hiding in plain sight all the time. We just have to be trained in how to recognize them. So, so I really like what you're talking about, the doors.
Yeah, Carl Jung would back that up. Life is a buffet of sacred symbology.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So I hope you guys got value out of this. I know I got value out of this for sure. To be able to connect with someone who's been doing the work that I've been doing longer in general than I've been alive on this planet is pretty humbling, to say the very least. So any opportunity to continue to spread the work. And also the other nugget or takeaway is stress. What did you say? Stress is the destroyer of opportunity. Is that?
Stress is the equal opportunity destroyer.
Stress is an equal opportunity destroyer. I totally love that nugget. That's super funny. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to Luke directly. You guys already know what I do: energy healing, meditation, practical spirituality within pranic healing or hatha yoga. And just keep making these videos for you guys and adding value. So Luke, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your energy and your tremendous wisdom. And I look forward to continuing our friendship, even though we're only 35 minutes from each other, or about 45 minutes from each other. And maybe you've inspired me to grow my beard back. We'll see about that. So 2 months of growth. All right, guys, this is Christian Arlong with the Mahatma Project, spreading the message of great souls, doing great work. And we will catch you on the next interview very, very shortly. Atma Namaste.